The woman's hand trembled, not from the cold, not from age, but from something far worse. She could feel the ground slipping away beneath her feet, could feel gravity pulling harder than it should. "Ma'am? Please, don't move. Let me help you." And in that single moment, everything changed. Welcome back to Acts of Kindness Stories, where real kindness writes the best stories. Rain wasn't unusual in the town of Riverbend, but storms like this were. The kind that bent streetlights and sent trash cans tumbling down Maple Street like tumbleweeds. The kind that made people question whether staying home might have been the smarter choice. But 80-year-old Gloria Hensley didn't have that luxury. She just left Riverbend Community Clinic after an appointment that had shaken her to her core, and the only thing keeping her upright was sheer will and the black umbrella her late sister Catherine had given her 30 years ago. That umbrella had outlasted marriages, outlasted storms, outlasted so much loss. Gloria gripped it like a lifeline, shuffling forward with slow, deliberate steps, her joints burning with every movement. "Just make it to the bus shelter," she whispered through chattering teeth. "Just a little further." But the storm had other plans. A sudden vicious gust of wind ripped the umbrella clean out of her hands. Gloria watched helplessly as it pinwheeled down the street, tumbling end over end before smashing against a lamppost with a sickening crack. She gasped, her balance tipping dangerously. Her thin cardigan clung to her skin like wet paper. Water streamed down her face, into her eyes, making the world blur into streaks of gray and shadow. People rushed past her, jackets pulled tight, heads down, focused only on their own survival. Cars roared by, splashing muddy water onto the sidewalk. No one stopped. No one even looked. Her vision swam. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. And just when her legs threatened to buckle entirely, just when she thought she'd crumble right there on the sidewalk, a voice cut through the chaos. "Ma'am? Please, don't move. Let me help you." Gloria blinked through the rain, her breath catching. Standing before her was a young girl, maybe 17, soaked to the bone and shivering. No umbrella. No heavy coat. Just a threadbare jacket and shoes that looked like they'd been held together with hope and duct tape. But her eyes were clear and determined. Her name was Leona Price, and while she didn't have much in this world, she had something most people had forgotten how to give. She stopped. And to Gloria, drowning in that storm, that simple act of stopping was everything. Leona gently took Gloria's arm, her grip firm but tender. "Let's get you somewhere dry," she said, her voice cutting through the wind. "Please." There was no pity in her tone, no condescension, just pure, uncomplicated humanity. Gloria hesitated, pride warring with desperation. "But dear, you're drenched. You'll catch pneumonia." Leona smiled, rain streaming down her face. "I'm already wet. But you're trembling. Come on." She guided Gloria toward the nearest shelter she could find. Harper's Antique Cafe, a cozy, dimly lit place filled with mismatched chairs, old clocks ticking out of sync, and the warm, humming presence of an espresso machine that had been brewing comfort for decades. The bell above the door timed as they stumbled inside. Tom Harper, the owner, a barrel-chested man in his 60s with kind eyes and flour-dusted hands, looked up in alarm. "Miss Hensley? Good Lord, what happened?" Before he could say more, Leona carefully lowered Gloria into a cushioned booth near the window. Tom rushed over with towels and began preparing hot tea while Leona knelt down, gently drying the rain from Gloria's trembling hands and soaked shoes. Her movements were practiced, deliberate, the kind of care that only comes from someone who's known what it means to be fragile and has never forgotten how that felt. "She lost her umbrella in the wind," Leona explained softly. "Nearly went down on the pavement." Gloria stared at the girl kneeling before her. This stranger who'd appeared like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known she'd whispered. "What were you doing out in that storm, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Leona hesitated, wringing water from her jacket sleeve. "Heading to Baxter's Diner. I have a job interview there." "In this weather?" Gloria's eyebrows shot up. "I walked," Leona admitted, her voice quiet. The bus didn't come and the manager said if I was late I shouldn't bother showing up at all. Tom scoffed from behind the counter. And your folks let you walk through a storm like this? Leona looked down at her hands. There's no one else. It's just me. Her voice wasn't bitter or angry, just honest, stripped of any pretense. Gloria studied her for a long moment, taking in the exhaustion behind those young eyes, the determination that refused to quit despite everything working against her. This girl had saved her. Had stopped when no one else would. Had given kindness when she had every reason not to. You saved me, Gloria said softly, reaching across the table to take Leona's hand. Let me help you get to that interview. I can't ask you for that. You didn't ask, Gloria replied, her grip firm despite her trembling. I offered. And I happen to be extremely stubborn. Even Tom chuckled at that. She's not lying about that part. Leona's eyes glistened. All right then. Thank you. Despite Tom's protests about Gloria going back out into the storm, she insisted. Tom finally relented, offering to drive them both in his delivery van. As they drove through the rain-slicked streets of Riverbend, Gloria stared out the window, her mind drifting back to the clinic. To the words that had changed everything just hours ago. You're losing your sight, Gloria. Rapidly. The doctor's voice had been gentle but firm, like she was delivering news about the weather rather than Gloria's entire future. Within 6 months, maybe less, your vision will deteriorate significantly. Gloria had walked out of that clinic feeling like she was already disappearing, like the world was slipping away before she even had the chance to say goodbye to it. But today in this storm she'd seen Leona. She'd seen the kind of heart she wished the world had more of. And suddenly, the months she had left to truly see felt precious in a way they hadn't before. At Baxter's diner, the storm still raged as they stepped inside, the bell above the door barely audible over the thunder. The manager, Dennis Coulter, stood near the counter with his arms crossed and a scowl carved deep into his weathered face. He was a man who measured people in dollars and punctuality, nothing more. You're late, he barked at Leona before she'd even taken 3 steps inside. Interview's over. Leona froze, her face draining of color. Sir, the storm. I don't care about the storm. I said it's over. You think I want employees who stroll in whenever they feel like it? Tom bristled beside Gloria, his fists clenching. But Gloria raised a hand, stopping him. Then she turned her gaze on Dennis Coulter, and her voice, when it came, was calm, steady, and absolutely controlled. Mr. Coulter. I see you haven't changed. He blinked, confusion flickering across his face. Excuse me. You were the same 20 years ago when this diner was failing and begging for investors. His scowl deepened. What's your point, lady? Gloria took a step forward, leaning slightly on her cane. You may have forgotten, Mr. Coulter, but I have not. I own 40% of this establishment. Leona's eyes went wide. Tom's mouth dropped open. Dennis Coulter went pale as milk. What are you talking about? He stammered. Gloria stood as tall as her 80 years would allow. I am Gloria Hensley. My late husband Richard and I invested in Baxter's Diner when it was drowning in debt and days away from closing. We kept this place alive. I'm not just a customer, Mr. Coulter. I'm a part owner. I'm sure that name is familiar to you. The silence that followed was deafening. Leona looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Dennis Coulter's face cycled through several shades of red before landing on something close to panic. Now, Gloria continued, her voice like iron wrapped in velvet, you are going to interview this young woman properly. Yes, ma'am. Of course. Please. Sit, he stammered, gesturing frantically at a booth. Gloria held up her hand. Not for a dishwasher position. That's beneath her dedication. She turned to Leona, her expression softening. My dear, Baxter's needs someone who can manage inventory, coordinate schedules, and, most importantly, make customers feel valued. You showed me today that you know how to care for people when it matters most. She smiled. You would make an excellent guest services lead. Leona covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I don't know if I'm qualified. Gloria took both of her hands. You're qualified because you have heart. Everything else, that can be taught. Dennis Coulter scrambled like a man trying to save his job. Yes, absolutely. Guest services led. Full training included. $17 an hour to start. If you'll accept. Leona choked on her tears, nodding frantically. I accept. Thank you. Thank you so much. 2 hours later, the storm had finally exhausted itself. Gloria sat with Leona in a quiet booth near the back of the diner, steam rising from their teacups, the world outside calm and glistening. Leona hadn't stopped smiling, though her eyes kept filling with tears. Why did you help me so much? She whispered. You didn't even know me. Gloria's eyes softened and she reached across the table, taking Leona's hand in hers. Today at the clinic, I found out I'm losing my sight. Leona's breath caught, her smile faltering. Gloria continued gently, her voice steady despite the weight of the words. In the months I have left to truly see this world, I want to know it still has people like you. People who stop. People who care. Leona squeezed her hand tightly, her voice fierce despite the tears. You're not going through this alone. I promise you that. Gloria smiled, faint but full of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. You already kept that promise, sweetheart, when you grabbed my arm in the rain. They sat together in the warm light of the diner, the storm now just a memory outside the window. Two strangers brought together by a moment of choice. One kindness. A lifetime of impact. Because that's the thing about compassion, it doesn't cost much but it changes everything. And in a world that often rushes past, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stop. Kindness gives courage. If this story touched you, comment, kindness gives courage. And please don't forget to like this video. Hit the subscribe button for more stories that reminds us why humanity is worth believing in. Also turn on notifications so you don't miss out on stories like this. Thank you for being here and I'll see you in the next story.